Hi, I'm Greg Kesich. I'm the editorial page editor at the Portland Press Herald, and here we are in the belly of the beast, the Sunday columnists, Cynthia Dill and Caron, and we're hoping that Bill Nemitz will come and join us midway. It's been an exciting week. We had the most massive, biggest inauguration of a president ever, most witnessed, most beloved, huge. And then some little whiners came along the next day and said something nobody could really pay attention to. It was vulgar and
excuse me.
That was no, that's not really what happened. But it's been a really eventful week. Alan, what are your thoughts on the
alternative facts?
Exactly.
Those are the alternative facts.
I think it's just interesting and fun every day right now, watching this administration come to power and try to figure out what they're going to do. I thought the demonstrations across the country were astonishing and uplifting, and just what the doctor ordered for millions of people who can barely believe what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Did you participate in any of them?
I didn't, only because I'm in the middle of a big project that's consuming me, but I nonetheless felt the wave.
All right. Bill Nemitz is joining us.
The eagle has landed.
Exactly.
So we were talking about the protests, the march, which I guess some people don't want to call a protest, following the inauguration on Saturday. And Alan was saying, "Oh, you can finish your thought."
Uplifting. I mean, it's really what I think a lot of people needed who were pretty far down, and I think it's an indicator of what's coming in other issues and in other the reemergence of certain movements that have sort of gotten a little complacent. Things have been going real well for a while. We've got a Democratic president for 8 years, advancing on lots of issues, and it's easy to either forget or not know that we haven't moved that far in some issues. There's still lots and lots of work to be done, and if you ever wanted the illustration, there it is.
I would have disagreed with that this time last week, because I thought my feeling looking ahead to the marches, whatever you're going to call them, was, God, I hope they hit their projections. They were projecting, I think, about 250,000 in Washington, and I thought, man, if they only get 125, 150, it's going to really boomerang. So when it all played out, first in Washington, including several members of my own family, and then I start looking online or looking at Twitter, various places, to see what was happening in Augusta, in Portland, in Denver, in Chicago, all over the country. It vastly exceeded what I expected. So now I'm agreeing with you, because if they could mobilize that many people, simply, I think, in response to the election, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens when those more specific things start coming up. I don't think you're going to always see 500,000 people in D.C., but I think you are going to see, collectively hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people suddenly becoming active when they weren't before.
What did you think, Cynthia?
Oh, I thought it was just a fabulous response to the election. It was just so swift and hard. It was a really punch to the gut of the whole Trump thing. And what I loved is that for maybe a couple of hours, it shut down the Trump Twitter feed. I mean, I was awaiting his response. Like, what's he going to do? Is he going to start flipping out and tweeting up a storm about how ugly these women are and how fat they are? But instead, he had one sort of somewhat offensive tweet that suggested that the marches were sour grapes, which no one participating or observing would agree with, because they definitely were not sour grapes. But then the second tweet, he sort of acknowledged the right to protest and, the right to free speech, which, come on, that's not a lot, given that he's the president of the United States and supposed to uphold the Constitution. But nonetheless, it was that was really interesting. I think, Bill said they mobilized. And that's the big question is who, I don't think there is a they in the March organization. It started obviously with a lawyer from Hawaii, and then it grew to a board. But the marches just kind of were contagious across the world. And it was just this ground-swelling response, and I thought it was fabulous.
I went to the Portland one largely because it went right by my house. So it would have been
So
hard
you
to
didn't
miss.
go to it. It
It came to me. Yeah, I was like, okay.
Just to clarify.
I was amazed by how good-natured it was, how much fun people were having, and I think one of the reactions to the election was people were feeling very isolated. Like people who don't like Trump felt isolated, felt alienated from what was going on in the bigger part of the country. I had a couple of thoughts when I was watching it. I had trouble imagining what the message was of this gathering, other than sort of a generalized defense of women's rights. I had trouble imagining where it would go as a movement, but I guess it's probably not going as a movement. It's probably going as multiple movements, and there was a lot of. I didn't see a lot of immigrant. I saw signs defending immigrants, but I didn't see a lot of participation by immigrants, and I don't know if they felt invited or part of the event, which concerned me a little bit. I didn't see a lot of different interests coming together in a sort of common opposition. But in terms of an event in and of itself, it was a lot of fun, and I think people walked away from it feeling better.
Yeah, I think people went in with various agendas. I mean, some people hope to achieve something politically, to make a statement, to maybe organize some kind of next step. But a lot of people were there just for the sake of being there, just the sake of being surrounded by nice people. That in and of itself was what they needed. And, I must say, it was mostly women who organized it. And, obviously hundreds of thousands of women participated in addition to many men. But, there was no arrests to speak of, no violence. It was a perfectly, orchestrated response that I feel doesn't have a lot of legs going forward. I don't think that it's the beginning of something that big. But
Not that big.
But it's spawning individual
right.
action. It gives people the courage to maybe do something else.
I think it's important, too, to identify not just what the message is, but who or what the target of that message is, because you can have, I think, one of these a week for the next 2 years. Yeah. And it's not going to change Donald Trump's behavior. It's not going to change his view of the world. If anything, it will further embolden him on his agenda as it currently exists. So if in terms of affecting real change, I think that the target for these types of protests, however large or small they might be, really needs to be aimed more at Congress right now. And, they're the only, government body that I think is going to be receptive and reactive to this kind of phenomenon. I just don't think Trump is. I don't think he's going to change his course no matter how many people gather in the mall.
No.
Well, just one more thought on this, though. I do think that what matters to Donald Trump is size. and the fact that the response to his election was this massive outpouring of women is just, it's perfect.
Right. I think it matters very much to him. I just don't think it's going to change his course. But I agree. It's all. All we've heard about is since the inauguration is the size of this, the size of that. It's
even
everywhere.
Before that,
the guy is investigating an election that he won.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Because he wanted a bigger vote. Yeah. How does it play out in Maine? I've seen a number of big crowds over the last couple of years. Bernie Sanders came to Portland and played at the Civic Center.
Played
at the Civic. Showed up at the Civic Center, 10,000 people.
Who opened for him?
Yeah, exactly. Troy Jackson. I believe Troy Jackson was the opening act. Yeah. And similar in the caucus, there were 4-hour lines outside the caucus sites. This was an enormous. You had two of the biggest protests or rallies people have seen in living memory in Augusta and Portland on the same day. What does this say about Maine? Where does that push things in Maine?
Well, Trump didn't win Maine. He won a segment of Maine that a lot of these things aren't penetrating into. So the challenge remains, how do those who oppose Trump speak to those elements that feel they've been left behind? So that's a longer-term learning curve. This event we were talking about was a spontaneous, as close to grassroots emergence as you're going to see, and so hallelujah. But you're right, Bill. It ultimately needs to go to what the law will be, and we're in a stage in this Trump administration where it's all Trump, all the time. I mean, they're just extending the campaign and issuing these executive orders like he's making speeches on the campaign trail. So right now he's the only target, and it's very early. I mean, the fact that happened so quickly before he's actually specifically proposed legislation is astonishing to me.
Right, but there's still the sticky, the ACA, assuming it's repealed, that's a Capitol Hill process. That's not a White House process. And that's where I think the energy needs to be, that's an example, a big example of where I think the energy needs to be redirected.
Everything they're doing now is, to me, largely symbolic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know people are fearful about these executive orders, but when you peel them away to what a president can really do, there isn't much there. It's showboat stuff. I've directed that we build a wall. Mm-hmm. Really? Where's the money? Right. Oh, that has to be done by Congress. Yeah.
Right.
I've directed my my agencies to do whatever they can to slow down the ACA. But and they put it out as we're going to. This is this. We promised to kill the ACA, and we did on the first day, and we did it. No, you didn't.
Well, and he's going to build the Keystone Pipeline.
The pipeline, yeah.
He's going to stop immigration, take back our borders, absolutely. But those are the kinds of false promises he made in the campaign. And it's brilliant, I think, that he's now saying that, I've accomplished it, and everybody loves me for it. So hopefully the public is a little bit more skeptical now that he's won and he's continuing to make these falsehoods. What I'm concerned about a little bit is his first press conference with his new spokesperson, Sean Spicer, was terrible, very provocative, elicited very, very harsh responses by some of these media personalities. And I'm exhausted by the battle. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people might be exhausted by the battle because it's a continuation of the campaign and therefore will not put on that skeptical thinking cap that they need to, get through to what you're saying, which is this is a bunch of BS. You haven't done anything. You signed a piece of paper. It's not like Keystone Pipeline is all of a sudden going to appear on the landscape.
I mean, the danger is if it becomes the battle and the press is a side in the battle.
Exactly.
And then people can discount everything that they read, saying, well, that's their perspective because that's the press is against the president.
And that's why I'm getting tired of this wall-to-wall coverage of the daily press briefings on the cable channels. It's there's a lot of give and take in those sessions, and there's a lot of it can get a little ugly. In the past, that was just that's how you do business. But now, when Spicer is challenged on something, I won't say the whole world is watching, but a lot more of the world is watching. And it can be so easily cast as the reason, once the novelty of the executive orders runs out and people get tired of seeing Trump with his 10-second signature and all that, I fear that if those press briefings become too big a deal, it's going to be, we would and could get more done here in the White House if these people out here in the press wing
Yeah.
weren't making it so hard for
Well, it's like
us.
reality
And
television.
the other way around too, or like what happens in that briefing room is a fraction of what reporters do.
A small fraction at this point.
But it always has been. I mean, it's like you don't really get any great stories from the official spokesperson, but they've taken on this outsized role, and it's now this kind of like wrestling match.
When
And
really it's a competition to see who can get the most TV time.
And the real competition is all on one side. The reporters are all competing against each other.
Right,
They're not competing
exactly.
against the spokesperson.
And it doesn't do the public any good to have like some reporters win at questioning the, it's like it's too theatric as opposed to reporting on the facts, because what the spokesperson's saying is alternative facts. So, you can, I don't know, I don't want the media to be my like lawyer down in Washington litigating the news every day. I don't know.
But it's a function of where we are in this process. He doesn't have his cabinet in yet. I just read today that they've only appointed about 300 people out of 4,000 they get to appoint. And so they really can't do much else. They have yet to put together one proposal that they can even talk about coherently that will go to Congress. And then everything they try to do is going to have enormous resistance, both within government and outside of government. So there's going to be plenty to report about when all of it shifts to what's the actual thing, Mr. President, that you're trying to do? What is it that you want Congress to do? So we're beyond the campaign speeches now, the slogans, the tweets.
We are. He isn't.
Well,
That's the
he'll
problem.
have to be at some point.
Well, I wonder, frankly.
Well,
I wonder if in fits and starts, he developed the ability to campaign, and to the point where he was a very effective campaigner. My question is, will he be able to develop the ability to govern? And I'm much more skeptical of that than I am his ability to sell, which he's been doing all his life.
No, but to have, and I agree with that. I don't think he will pivot. I think we're beginning to appreciate that all the talk about how he's going to become presidential once he's president, we're going to wait a long time. But at some point, if he's going to enact the change he's talking about, it can't be one-offs with manufacturers and making proclamations, which is what these executive orders amount to. It's actually going to have to put something before the Congress on ACA, on a number of issues, on immigration. And if he doesn't, Congress is going to have to initiate things. And either way, I see problems everywhere they go on every issue that he's talked about. Some of the rubber's got to meet the road at some point.
And we haven't even talked about the Supreme Court nominee.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens when President Trump meets Prime Minister May this week. I mean, because now he's going to start, having to meet with people, and his words not only are of consequence because they, create sound bites and, ripples around the market and stuff, but, he's actually negotiating with another country about things that are really important. And so it'll be interesting to see how this plays out and how she manages it, because, on the world stage, he's got some people who are bringing to the table different skills and speaking to a different audience, and it's a whole nother level. Yeah,
I think there'll be free trade on like golf equipment. I heard this really interesting piece by our Russian reporter who was asked, how are people in Russia responding to this election? He says they think it's hysterical that and suddenly it's made Russia look so much more important. They had this inferiority complex, and now suddenly they feel like they're pulling the strings on our elections, and they have this. And he says America is starting to look more and more like Russia, where nobody believes anything that they read. Every conspiracy theory is equal to any published fact. Everything that the leader says is a lie, and they have no confidence in the integrity of the election, this is basically how things work in Russia.
Maybe we should start drinking vodka.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, and the other thing, I think I read the same, or it might have been the same guy who said it was universally celebrated in Russia when Trump won. I mean, it was people were doing handstands, probably for those reasons. But you're right. It's been turned on its ear. Right.
And my homeland, not my homeland, my father's homeland, Serbia. Trump is very popular in Serbia, and yes, they are saying this is the greatest thing that's happened. That this will prevent World War III, and Serbians have a view of the world with like Serbia in the center, and then the rest of the world conspiring against it. And
Serbia-centric.
They've kept the buildings that were bombed by NATO in 1999 are still bombed. And they say Clinton did this.
Interesting.
So that's their perspective, their micro perspective on these events. But thanks to Russia Today, I'm reading a lot about Serbia because it's it just suddenly appears on my news feed.
Well, Trump makes Marine Le Pen in France look like a moderate. I mean, she sounded on the radio this morning like, a moderate response to this global phenomena that Trump, exhibits, which it's just mind-boggling to me.
And this is another candidate that the Russians are backing.
Yeah. So, according to her, and I think according to a lot of people who analyze the election, is that it's no longer a left-right divide. It's no longer Democrats and Republicans. It's people who believe that globalization has screwed the little guy and has eroded, national borders versus the global elite who profit off of, of trade. And if people are buying that, I don't see the Trump administration where they fall. I mean, he's all over the map on that.
And how did the billionaires get on the side of that divide?
The
where they're fighting
side?
for the little guys.
Right.
How did that happen?
Yeah.
By the way,
very artfully.
Yeah, very skillfully. The Russia thing, and there's a column or books to be written about the Cold War is back and the Russians are winning, based on this last election, because everybody sort of thought they were gone. It was done.
Not Hillary.
Not Hillary. Yeah, that's right. And here these guys
Where is she now?
Exactly.
Now here these
She's
guys
writing that
playing
book.
on the international stage.
Yep.
That's Hillary's book.
And affecting Syria and affecting the Ukraine and now the election and elections elsewhere. I mean, I think we have to revisit the idea that the Cold War is ongoing, and actually they're in the ascendancy.
Two points on that. Everything that Cynthia described as the sort of nationalist viewpoint sounded exactly like Maine's Governor Paul LePage. And second, Waterville has a sister city in Russia, which Governor LePage has visited before he was governor. So, I mean, do we have enough? Do we have enough? I think we can. I think we can. I think we have a pretty good conspiracy theory that
Start checking the real estate listings over
Paul
there.
LePage was the leading edge of this Russian invasion.
Paul LePage bridged the gap between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin.
He was the first shock troop.
Well, it continues to amaze me how far out in front of all this Maine is. The other example this week is the investigation into voter fraud.
Yeah.
And this announcement that President Trump made the other day is so reminiscent of the announcement that then Secretary of State Charlie Summers made several years back, that we are going to investigate voter fraud here in Maine. And as we remember famously, I think they came up with 2 maybe gray area cases in recent electoral history in Maine.
Registered in more than one state, but no evidence that they voted in
Exactly, right. And so here we are again, where you can look out at the national landscape as people are wringing their hands over this whole voter fraud investigation, and we Mainers can say, yeah.
Okay.
We've been through that. We did that.
You
It
heard
went
it here
nowhere.
first. As Maine goes, so goes the world.
But it's discomfortingly true right now. If only that for the past 6 years we have kind of been following the same script that seems to be playing out now. It's amazing.
Let's hope that the Congress is a little bit more robust in responding. I mean, as we talked about last time, when I was in the Senate and in the House when LePage was elected, people were outraged. He had been elected by less than a majority, and Maine has no process to recall the governor. So, there was a thought of putting in a bill just to talk about, do we want a process that the people could have to remove a public official? You'd think, that I was proposing some sort of treason, unwilling to even have the conversation. Now, I bet if you stopped some of those people now and said, do you think maybe a process in place that could, test the people's will against what the governor's doing, they all think, yeah, it's a great idea. But there was just, they didn't have the courage to act. And I just hope the Congress has the courage. Like, I hope members of Congress have the courage to do something if what we're seeing now is the leading act. Is this, unhinged, basically
Yeah, well, not to
unproductive.
sound too cynical, but Republicans are in control of Congress, and they're suddenly in love with Donald Trump. Funny what winning does. I mean, all of the same people who for months were dancing in the distance, making sounds, urging others, pulling money, they're all on board right now. Which is exactly what happened with Republicans in Maine. All of the moderate Republicans,
with a few exceptions,
with a few notable exceptions and worthy ones, but by and large, they all sort of went along, and by the re-election, those very same people were singing the praises of LePage, intelligent folks that should know better, really. So now you see the same phenomenon happening in Congress. I think the parallels are astonishing, really, between LePage. So another book that somebody could write right now, that's like, if you want to know what's going to happen, come study Maine carefully. Because LePage had Republican House and Senate, as I remember, the first 2 years, had a million things he wanted to do, got basically 2 of them done that I can remember, maybe 3. The rest of them all sort of, they just couldn't take them all. They couldn't manage them all, and I think the same thing will happen with Trump. And the question of what are the 2 things, or 3 things? Because after those things are done, the capital's spent. It's gone. I don't even know if this guy will get the 2 things done. But is it the wall and a new health care plan that's called something other than Obamacare? They're going to run out of energy. To me, that's the most interesting parallel.
Yeah, we used to call this the honeymoon period, but it ain't that right now. Right. But you're right. At some point, maybe a grace period might be a better way to describe it. That is probably, and I think it's going to be directly proportionate to how close we are getting to the midterms, as to how long a lot of. Although in the Senate, if you look at the Senate, the upcoming Senate midterm, the Democrats have a lot more to lose than the Republicans, so it's still going to be a fight. And to suggest that the Democrats could take control of the Senate in the next midterm carries with it a lot of assumptions. Nevertheless, I think after the first 6 months, you're going to start seeing some Republican weariness of what's coming out of the White House.
Well, it's probably the time when Mitch McConnell is sharpening the knives, right? And waiting until he doesn't have to deal with Trump anymore, because they're not on the same page on almost anything.
Well, I think,
except for power.
Right. What I like about the evolution of thought since the election is that it seems like the idea of just repealing Obamacare is completely off the table, which of course it always should have been not on the table because it's unrealistic. But at least now most people accept certain things like pre-existing conditions, can't, insurance until you're 26, some basic, that's, the fact that everybody's sort of around those issues now and has their arms around them and accepts them is good, I think is a good sign. The other thing is in terms of immigration, Trump made a big splash about he's going to build a wall and he's going to, lock up illegal immigrants and prevent Syrians from coming. But he didn't sign the executive order that would have repealed the dream, to send back the young people who are here, DOCA. And so I think there's some room for Trump to negotiate on some of these issues that Democrats care about, and I do think it's going to cause, it's the Republicans now who are on the ropes. I mean, they are on the ropes because they've got to deal with this guy, and they have to deal with themselves because they do not have necessarily consistent ideologies with what the Trump administration is saying their priorities are.
And I'm sure they're scrambling to figure out what are the things we can give this guy so it looks like he's accomplishing things And, you know, the wall actually will be the easiest one.
Yeah, that's what I think.
I mean, it's a relatively small expense compared to throwing 20 million people off health care.
Well, the one big thing they can give him is the Supreme Court nomination.
Yes, well, that's going to happen.
That's going to be. We get so caught up in so many of the backstories to these executive orders that there's this huge thing right around the corner. I mean, we're going to see a nomination, I believe, next Thursday is the latest, and that will be, depending on what the Democrats do. But of course, obviously, it's in the president's and the Republicans' interest to fast track this thing. So I'm kind of surprised at this point, up until today, it could change, as to how little attention is being paid and how little news is being generated by the fact that this one act, which is not symbolic, it's real. When he nominates a Supreme Court nominee, that's huge, is about to play out. And it's like we're all so tired of what happened over the past year with the obstruction of President Obama's nominee that people are tired of hearing about it. But it's here.
Yeah.
It's the exception to the filibuster.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, I think
Right.
I predict that Chuck Schumer and Donald Trump are going to negotiate the Supreme Court nominee. I have a feeling. I mean, this is the one area where Democrats actually do have power and they can exert it. And
Before Trump nominates?
well, I do. I bet those conversations are taking place right now, and we're not hearing about it because we're hearing about how many people were at the mall and stuff.
Right.
I mean, I think that's one of the
See,
most
if he were like
exciting-
other presidents, I would believe that. If I would, because that's how it's done. Before he nominates somebody, he goes to the Hill and says, "Okay, let's do
Right.
some nose counting here and see who's going to get through and who isn't." That's the way we've always done it. My fear is that he's just going to go off willy-nilly and pick a nominee who appeals not so much to Capitol Hill Republicans, but to his base. In other words, the farthest right he can get. And he's going to drop that on Capitol Hill. And all of a sudden, we could potentially have a stalemate between Congress and the president over a Congress that's controlled by his own party, and the president over his Supreme Court nomination. At that point, I just don't see Trump backing down. I can't imagine he would say, "Okay, I'll withdraw this guy and give you this guy."
So we'll go with an 8-member court
Corey Lewandowski,
for the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
that would be a bold move.
In other words, I think I don't put it beyond Trump to put up somebody and then just cut him off at the knees if it doesn't work out. I mean, I just don't see him being that loyal to one of his
I'm
nominees.
not talking. It's not loyalty to his nominee. It's loyalty to his own ego.
Yeah.
Admitting that he made a mistake.
One of the things we learned from LePage that I think we're going to see with Trump also is that the first time Republicans in Congress stand up to him, and
Right.
he'll make them
Right.
do it.
Right.
Like he'll nominate.
And I'm wondering if this is going to be
This
it.
could be it. Depending on how far he goes, and if he's not talking with them. But whenever it is, it's going to happen. It's already happened on health care. It's been a gentle, quiet, relatively quiet, like just move off that issue because it's not going to happen the way you think. So they're avoiding that one for the meantime, for now. But there's going to be that issue. And I will just predict, again, watching LePage's behavior, the first time they say no, he's going to war against them.
Personally.
Just what LePage did. He will be attacking Republicans in Congress, and then all hell breaks loose because they're not going to like it, and they're going to shut down the rest of the program because of it. Again, just exactly what we saw.
When was the
here.
last time you heard LePage say something good about the Republicans in the legislature? As opposed to when was the last time you heard LePage say something bad about the legislature, which happens every day. The partisan aspect of it vanishes. And you're right. I think 4 years from now, it's going to be Donald Trump versus Congress. Mm-hmm. And they're going to be, they and the media will be the cause of all of his. And where do you hear that? You hear that in Augusta every day.
Everything he can't accomplish is somebody's fault.
Right.
What about Augusta? We got a legislature, we got a governor, they've got a budget.
Ho hum.
I just don't see anything happening. I really don't.
Like they can't even build this step down facility in Riverview that everybody agrees on.
Yeah, well, and the way that played out, Janet Mills comes out with an opinion that says LePage needs legislative approval. And the legislative response, at least according to the reporting that I read, was that if he only would come to us, we would approve it. I mean, it just seems to me like that's not what the public wants to hear. It's like, well, if you're just going to rubber stamp something, then you're not really overseeing.
No, and the
it.
underlying issue there is not the facility; it's the privatization of its operation, and that's what at least the Democrats in the legislature at least want to subject to a hearing.
No, it's federal certification of the facility, so we get the $20 million bucks.
Right.
I mean, that's what the public wants. It's like, come on, we want a certification of our psychiatric hospitals so we can have the federal funding that we lost. And that's what everybody should be focused on. I just don't get how it's, well, if it's in Bangor, if it's in Augusta, we'll approve it. It's like, well, no, if it's going to meet federal standards and get certified, then you approve it. You don't just approve it because it's going to be in Augusta.
I'm left completely perplexed as to what, if anything, the Attorney General's opinion means at this point. What it's going to prevent, if anything, or what it's going to prompt, if anything.
The grounds under which she says that they have to approve it is based just on who owns the land. To build it in the capital facility, it requires legislative approval. And to Cynthia's point, who cares?
Right.
This whole legislative council
if your problem is really privatizing a state function, let's have an argument about that.
Right.
I thought Janet Mills was introducing another test, which is that the legislature would have to approve the funding of it wherever it was. So that changed, if that's true, that changed the conversation. And the whole reason he would want to go to Bangor was to avoid the legislative review. So what in effect she's saying is, it doesn't matter where you go, you're going to have legislative review. So come back, presumably that means come back and figure something out. But it's more government by snit than anything else.
I mean, the state sends millions of dollars to private healthcare facilities every year. There's something like 7,000 contracts. They send it to hospitals, to doctors' offices, to group homes. Why couldn't this be a private group home? I mean, is that really what they're saying? Is that?
I think it goes more, and my sense is that it goes more to this fear because it kind of moves very close to, if not overlaps, our corrections system. That it gets into that whole privatization of corrections, which is a whole nother ball of wax. I don't know. That my sense is that farming out health and human services functions to various social service agencies is one thing, but hooking up with one of these 2 or 3 corporations that specialize in running prisons efficiently is quite another. So I think that's where the sensitivity lies here.
Well, if that's the battle, I think then whoever's messaging about it is doing a bad job. I mean, I think
it might not be. It might just be my instinct.
It just seems to me the obvious discussion should be around the certification of a psychiatric facility that meets federal requirements, so that the certification that they lost in 2013 that costs the state, I think, $20 million and lots of other funds associated with it comes back. I mean, so this. To your point about like what's happening in Augusta, it's like not much, it seems, to really address the issues that most people sort of care about. There's a lot of campaigning, the governor doing his town hall meetings, the reporting on his bariatric surgery. I don't know.
Interesting, though, last night with the Biddeford town hall, which appears to have been considerably more contentious than they have been. I wonder how much of what we saw on Saturday might start to spill over into these town halls, particularly those that are held in southern Maine.
I think it spilled over.
Yeah, and I think it's going to continue to. So, and how it'll be interesting to see how that impacts his choice of location for future town hall.
What are they thinking in the LePage administration? They put him out there for 6 months in these town hall meetings to pitch all of his positions on the referendums. Initially, they were going to do the referendum. Then they couldn't get the signatures to do some of it. So he stated all of these positions he has on minimum wage and on taxing the rich and all of this over and over and over again. And then he lost on everything. So now, in the face of having lost on everything and having a legislature that doesn't really care what he thinks, he's renewing his effort on town meetings. But where does he go? York County. Like, stay in western and northern Maine, because you're going to get killed everywhere you go on these things. Because now...
Go to Millbridge.
Yeah, go to Millbridge. But now he's speaking against the majority that voted on the issues, as though we didn't have a vote yet. And we still need to be persuaded that raising the tax is bad, or the minimum wage. I mean, what are they thinking? I can't discern.
I think it's just a personal vendetta. I think LePage has a personal battle going with the People's Alliance and Mike Tipping. And this is just his way to say, oh, yeah, you won the referendum? Well, I've got the bully pulpit, and I'm going to use it to go around and try to smack it down.
I don't know. I just reading the coverage. I thought he came out ahead on that one. It sounds like he didn't lose his temper. He didn't make any like outrageous racist statements. He sounded like he was something of a gentleman, and
low bar.
And it may not have. Yes, we're in the era of the low bar, but I think it played well. Maybe it didn't play well in the room, but the raucous crowd and the demonstrations, I think, don't necessarily play well to the people he's trying to reach.
But what's the goal? The goal, you have to presume, is to move the legislature to overturn these votes of the people, right? So that's the agenda. So you go into Saco, you've got Biddeford, you've got 150 people. It's contentious. It's a lot of light and noise. But what got moved in the legislature because of it? I mean, I can't discern what the purpose. If that was the purpose, it didn't happen there. I mean, you go in and attack the legislature and basically try to overturn the will of the voters on these issues.
You know, we were talking about this last time. Like, it didn't really look like his budget was something that he intended to get passed. It was to make the statement. So maybe this just increases the prestige of LePage as this kind of like the champion of the forgotten man.
He's campaigning for Senate.
But
I mean, it seems so obvious to me. He's
maybe
campaigning.
This is a precursor to his announcing he's going to run for Senate.
I think so.
So if it is, again, this is from the campaign strategy side, why would you go to York County to show how popular you are and just invite all of these folks to come out? We're now going to do it everywhere he goes. They were doing it before.
It's all these people who hate Diane Russell now see people being rude to him.
Yeah. And also, though, I do think that LePage in a room, he's charismatic.
Yes.
You can't capture LePage on video or in newsprint or on the radio exactly the way you can if you're in the room with him. And I think for him to get a couple of people in York County who maybe have always thought, I hate LePage, in the room and to see him perform, he might get a couple of people thinking, like, hey, maybe he's not so bad, you know? Maybe he's just a tough-talking guy, and I don't know.
I might be giving him too much credit here, but there's also the specter of those people in that other part of Maine watching him go into a place bravely, go into a place like Biddeford and get the crap kicked out of him. And nothing is going to solidify their support for him more than seeing him get knocked around like that. Vipers. So, you know, I think from a campaign standpoint, there's a lot to be said for the martyr syndrome here.
Right.
And that could very well factor into his choice of where he's going to go.
And that's an interesting point, that martyr syndrome, because that seems to be something he feeds off of all the time, whether he's running for something or not, is they're all against me. You know, I'm bravely standing in the face of all this adversity.
Right. And where else have we heard that?
Yeah, exactly. Which brings us back to full circle. So I think we'll have another exciting week, and look forward to talking to you guys again next week.
See you later.
Thanks for listening to the Portland Press Herald podcast. Make sure you never miss a podcast episode by subscribing on iTunes or your favorite podcast aggregator. For more of our podcasts, visit pressherald.com/podcasts. Follow the link there to this episode to leave a comment. You can also leave a comment on our Facebook page. I'm Chad Gilley. Once again, thank you for listening to the Portland Press Herald podcast.